Okay, I'm going to make a quick tutorial just showing how to set up a basic UI in Android Studio and then link that to the code behind. So kind of a starting point for Android development if you have a little bit of programming background already and just want to kind of get a feel for Android Studio and how to kind of connect your code behind with the UI. So I'm just going to open up Android Studio. You get this little pop-up here. We're just going to go start new Android Studio project. I'm just going to call this one basic UI. And you can see it's kind of got that reverse domain way to kind of put this in here. And so it's got my company, and then it's creating the package com.educatesoft.basicUI. That's going to be saved in my projects, which is good. Okay, it's going to be phone tablet app, so I can leave all this the same. Moving forward, and then we're just going to create an empty activity. There's a lot more advanced UIs you can choose for different types of apps, but like I said, the goal of today is just kind of let you see how things work. So we're going to let this generate a basic layout file for us that we're going to work within for a main activity as well. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the settings files or anything like that. So let's just let this generate that for us, and then we can take a look at our project. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. Okay, we can see that there's two main files that actually are open in our project once it fires up, and those are the two main files that we're going to work within. Just getting a feel for if I open up, sometimes you'll see this close, this app. You can see you have your manifest, which is where you're going to handle some settings and some other important stuff as well. If you went in there now, you'd see that our main activity is set to this main activity here. Most of our code is going to be within Java here, and so if I kind of drill down, you can see that main activity is open right now, and that's where we're going to actually type our code. If I drill down in here, the layout is the main activity where we're going to build our UI, and basically we're going to connect those two things. So you can take a look at some of this other stuff later on, but for the sake of this, those are the two files that we're going to kind of take a look at. So first of all, let's go back to the UI and let's start to design our UI. So you can see here they have basic UI, our title of our app that we're developing, and then you have also this hello world, which is just a text view. We're going to actually just nuke that. We're going to get rid of that. So let's just delete that. So we're starting with a nice blank canvas here. So what we're going to make is just a simple app, kind of calculator app, just to get a feel for this. So I'm just going to grab, you can see I have a bunch of UI objects here that I can grab and drag and drop onto the canvas here, as well as when we're in design view, and then you can see that the XML is actually happening in the code. But we can design our UI visually, so let's do that. So the first thing I'm going to add in here is I'm going to add in a button for addition. I'm going to go over to the properties over here on the right hand side. I'm just going to change two properties. I'm going to change the text value, and I'm going to change the name. So I'm just going to call this btn add, because it's going to be add button. So I like to just prefix them with camel casing there, and then I want to actually change the name to just add, and then hit enter, and then now I have a button there that we're going to use. Looks like that's where it wants to lock it. I'm good with that. So then I'm going to add another button, do the same kind of thing. Just going to put it right beside in here. I find sometimes it's a little bit of a hassle trying to get things to line up the way you want. And there's different ways you can stack your UI as well, but we're not going to focus on that today. Button sub for subtraction, and then go down and here just put sub. So these buttons, the way what they're going to do is just going to switch the operation in my app once they're pressed, and so we're going to wire those up to do that. Just grab another button, drag it in there. So you get the routine. Basically all I'm doing here, changing the name of the button under ID there, and then I'm changing the text. So I'll just put mul for multiply for this one, and I'll just do one more button here, and div up here, button div. Then I'm going to have one more button that it's just going to be a calculate button, and so I'll add that in as well. I'm just going to center this one, and this one button cal is good, and head on down here, and I'll just put calculate. Okay, now I'm going to just add a couple text boxes. So I actually want them to be, they'd be called edit text once they're in. I'm just going to grab, you can see if I hover over that, this is actually of the type edit text, but it's for numbers specifically. So I'm just going to grab one of those, drop it in here. So we have a place to add a couple numbers. We're going to add up. And so I'm just going to put that over to the side there. That's fine. Once again, I'm going to change this. I'm going to call this text. Num1 is fine. I can leave that so that it's blank. And I'm going to do the same thing. Second, edit text, I guess it would be text box on other platforms. You can see how sometimes I have resizing issues. Let's just rename this first before I do much else. So text num2. So I'm going to call this one. Let me just see if I can get this to resize. Good enough. Okay, so I have two text boxes there, or edit text, I guess is what they would be called here in Android. And then I want to do a couple labels, and so these would be text views in Android, and I'm not sure what size. Let's just do a large. I'm just going to drop this in here. And I'm going to just put, for now, a placeholder plus sign. So the original operation can be plus. We're going to just zoom in here. You can see I can zoom in, and I should be able to move my UI around a little bit better. So just put that, it looks fairly central. I'm going to add another label. Sure. I guess it would be called a text view. Like I said, moving between platforms, sometimes one platform calls things with something, another something else. Text, just call this equal This is actually not going to do anything except display an equal sign. Cool. Enter. And then again, I can move that to where I want it. And then we're actually going to, because I'm running out of UI room here, I think I'm going to display the answer down here underneath. So let's go large text. Put the answer right here. So. And for now, let's just call this label answer. And for right now, let's put some kind of placeholder text. Just a question mark is fine for that. So hit enter. And then again, I'm going to just center this in my UI. Okay, so basically I built a UI. The way this is going to work is I press any of these buttons up here, it's going to switch the operator sign here, and then also switch in the code behind the operator value, and then we're just going to, user can enter two numbers, and it will either add, subtract, multiply, or divide those two numbers when you hit the calculate button. So fairly straightforward UI. Now let's take a look at how to connect that up. Okay, so basic UI is set up. So now let's kind of take a look at how we can link this activity to our actual code. And so worthwhile taking a look again here at kind of our app project. And you can see our manifest. Let's just take a real quick look here. We can see this is kind of where some settings are set and some things. One thing to kind of take note of here is the main activity that is set up here, which is kind of our launcher activity. So, but beyond that, we can just close that down. And the two files we're trying to link together this UI now that we've developed with our actual project here. And so you can see inside this main activity, the first thing that you kind of see that's set is notice that inside this on create, we have set content view r.layout.activity main, which is the file that we were just working within, that XML file. So we can see we've already have that activity linked, or that XML file linked to our code. And so this is where we're going to handle our Java code. Just to take note there, yeah, the two types of files that we're working with is we're working with a Java file and programming in Java for the code behind, and we're working in XML in the actual UI design. And so if I flip now to the text view, you can see all that kind of stuff is set up here, and I did that visually in design view. So where to start? So I think the first thing that I'm going to kind of do here is probably start to declare those UI elements. And so what I'm going to do is kind of declare the different UI elements here and then link them to that XML file. So we'll say declare UI elements. So I'm just going to do button, button, add. I'll talk about what the red is happening there in a second. Button, button, sub. Just going to give them identical names to what I did in the XML file. It doesn't need to be like that, but it just keeps things nice and neat. Oh, I don't want to do that. Trackpad for a second. Button, button, div, and then what else did we have? We had a button, oops, button, button calc. We had text view. I think I called it label off. I'm hoping I called it that. Double check that. another text view that we need to access, which would be label answer, and we also had edit text where we're going to store, and I think I called them text, where the user would enter values. So edit text num2. Now you can see right away we have this red appearing here, so that just means that we need to import something. So I'm just gonna make that so it's uncollapsed there, and so expand that up there, the imports. And you can see if I hover over here, if I hit Alt Enter, it's going to add those imports for me. So I'm going to do that. You can see it added import Android widget.button. So now that error is gone. We're going to import a text view here as well. So I'm going to sit there, Alt Enter. It's going to add that text view, and then same thing here, Alt Enter, and that's going to add the edit text to my imports as well. So those errors are kind of taken care of. Next thing now that these are actually initialized, I need to make the actual link to the XML. So I'm just going to go down inside the right after the set content view in the onCreate method here, and just going to I'll just go like this. We'll start with maybe my label. So I'll go label op equal text view, and this dot find view by ID. I can just hit enter and get that autocomplete. R dot ID dot label. I wonder if I didn't label that one. I see label answer. I'm gonna have to maybe pop back here and I want to just take a look at that operation and see if I actually named this correctly. Oh, I forgot to name it. I meant to name it label op. Enter. Now hopefully that'll update quick enough here that I can get access to that inside my code. So yeah, and you can see label op is there now. And so I can just semicolon there, and that's going to complete that. So label op equal text view this find view by ID, and it's going to link it to that r.id label op, which is stored within that activity.main that we just kind of linked it up here too. So the other label that's going to be changed is the label answer, and so it's going to be identical. I don't think there's any point in me wasting your time watching me type, so I'm just going to copy and paste, and then obviously I'm just going to change this label op to label answer, just like that. Okay, so once I have the labels done, I have two edit texts that I need to link, and so I have text num1, which is going to be that first text box that the user is going to do, and again this one is going to be an edit text, and this dot find, let's see, it wants to fill it in for me already, dot id dot text num1, and just like this. Okay, so I have that one in, and again, no sense me typing the same thing twice. Copy, paste, and this time around change this to 2, this to 2 here, and now I'm going to add the buttons. Now the reason why I did the labels and the text boxes first here is because when I add the buttons, I'm also going to have to add event handlers for the buttons as well. So I'll get started on that. I'm going to go button add equals, and it'll be the same kind of thing. Button this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot button add, and you can see we're doing that the same. But now underneath here, I'm also going to go button. So I'm going to add the event handler right away. Add. I guess you could put this at the bottom, but I'm going to do these right here, so everything is kind of in the same place. Set on. This is a fair bit of syntax here. Click listener, and then we want to do new view dot, and we're going to get that's going to come up red for me for a second. On click listener. Okay, and I believe we have a required member that I'm going to add in here too, so I'm just going to hit enter and see that I have everything. I'm placing it in. And then I'm going to have to add here, actually let's just sort out this right away, this view. Should again be able to okay, now let's see if that added up here. Yeah, it added the view import that I needed up there. So now it added kind of also the necessary on click. Let me just see what I'm missing and what I'm not missing here. There. Bear with me. Okay, so on click listener. Override. So it looks like I'm just missing a curly bracket here. That should kind of get rid of that error. So just to kind of see what's happening here, adding this on-click listener here to has a mandatory method that comes within it, which is on-click, and that's where we're going to actually put our code to do what we need to do. So I'm just going to put in here logic code goes here, or handler code would be maybe even better. Handler code goes here. And so you don't really need to remember too much. You just need to know that you need this in place. And then we're going to do this for each of our buttons. And so I'm just going to do a little bit of copy and pasting here to kind of get that up to where we need it. So I'm just going to go button, sub, and then let's just copy and paste what I have here. So that we're going to add our logic after the fact. So I'm just going to copy, paste that there. And you can see then we have a place to add kind of logic code. It's only going to be a few lines in these button add and button sub, but that's where we're going to actually add some of our logic there. So the next button is multiply, so button, mul, and then I can just go Control V. You can see I forgot to do dot, that's kind of adding in there. And then the same thing for our next one here. Oops, should have closed out. Button, div, dot, Control V, and same thing, button, cal. Oh, hitting the trackpad, it's not good. Oh, I did it again. Button, cal, dot, and paste. So just kind of to review what we've just done inside this onCreate method. First thing that you'll see there that was already generated for us was this, the linking of this Java code to that main activity XML file. Then you can see I've set up the labels and the text boxes here. And then I started setting up the buttons, initializing the buttons and linking them as well. Along with each button, though, I decided to add their kind of event handlers for the on-click, right here, and then we have a place that we can add logic code inside each of those buttons. And that's just our basic setup. And so now we can actually start typing some just regular old Java code now that we have that framework in place. So the next thing that I'm going to do is let's just go up and let's put some kind of public variables up here near the top. So I'm just going to put public variables so I know have things in order. And I'm just going to put 2 integers. Probably should be doubles, but I'm just going to, for the sake of this, not deal with decimals in my UI. I'm not sure why I'm choosing to do that. This operator variable, I'll put a little note here. Add equals 1, sub equals 2, mul equals 3, and we'll say div equals 4. And so if we change this operator variable, we're going to start it out in addition like it was in that UI, and then we're going to change it to 2, and it's going to be subtraction 3, multiplication 4, division. So that's kind of the way our UI is going to set up. And then we have int answer, which is going to be where we're going to store our answer, and I'll just initialize that right now to yeah, so our answer is just set to 0. So just 2 basic Java variables. So the first thing that we're going to end up doing now is we're just going to go down to those button click handlers, and inside those handlers, let's we're just going to have a couple lines of code here. First, we're going to do we're just going to set the operation. So inside the add one, we said that add operation is going to be 1, which is default. It's already set to that now, but after pressing other buttons, it might need to switch back. And then we also need to change the text for that operator. So it's label op we want to change, which we linked at the top there. And what we're going to do is set text is kind of its method that does that. And then just inside there, we're just going to change that. It takes a string. So inside here, we're just going to add quotation mark plus quotation mark, and that's just going to set that as a string variable. I'm just going to hard code that in now. And that's all that's really going to happen for logic with inside the button add. And it's just going to be very similar. I'm going to do some copy and pasting to save some time as well. Inside our subtraction button event handler, it's going to be the same, except this is obviously going to be, we said this was going to be value 2 up here, and then this should change to the subtraction sign. Down here again, same kind of thing. This will be value 3 for multiplication. I'm just going to put an X for multiplication. It'll look better in the UI than the actual star symbol. I'm not going to bother getting the division symbol. I'm just going to put a slash for now. And so this can be operation 4 is going to be division. And so it's going to look like that. And so that's all I'm going to need for handling those 4 buttons. The button calculate is the last thing that we're going to do, but what we're going to do is actually we're going to make a function to take care of that. So I'm not sure where you want to keep your functions. For the sake of this, I could put some functions up here. I could put them down low. I like to kind of put them, I think, below the onCreate. So you can see the nice lines here. Well, where's the onCreate kind of end? Down in here. So I'm just going to put these below that onCreate, and I'm going to make a section called functions. You may want to put them in different places. Functions, methods, they're really the same thing. Some languages call functions, sometimes methods. So I'm going to just do a public, I'm going to do integer is going to be my return type function, and I'm going to call it calculate for now. And I'm going to give it a couple arguments. So I put the arguments inside the brackets here. Int, and I'm just going to say num1 int num2, and then I'm going to do open brackets here, and it's looking for a return type right now. That's why it's still erroring there. And so I'm just going to go, I'm going to make a variable here. I'm going to call int ans for answer. We already have an answer variable, so I don't want to confuse them. And then at the end, we're going to return ans, and then this is going to work for us. I could initialize that to 0 right now, and we'd get rid of the error, but it's redundant at the end to have that as 0, because I'm going to have so that ans is always going to have a case. So let's go if. So let's just put some basic logic with some if statement here. Let's go if op equals 1. Then we can go we can say if the operator is number 1, we're going to add, so let's say ans equals num1 plus num2, and our next condition here, then we can go if else, wrong syntax, else if let's go op equals 2, we want to subtract, so then we can go ans, which is our answer, equals num1 minus num2. Then we can go down here again, else if op equal 3, and equals num1 times num2, and so you can see the times is the star symbol obviously on your keyboard, and else if op equal, actually let's just go else, we'll make the only other possible condition division ans equals num1 divided by num2. So we have some basic logic and a basic function here that's going to just basically determine the operation and then calculate for us there. So that's our kind of calculate function. So how are we going to fill this? How are we going to use this? Well, we're going to use this right inside that button calculate event handler. So let's see first of all what we need to do there. So first thing I'm going to need to do, I'm going to declare another couple variables, but they're just going to be within this onClick. So let's go, need an integer variable, and I'll just call it number1, and it's going to, I need to pull the value from the UI to store that as an integer here, first of all, and then we're going to put this into our calculate function. So there's a few things that need to happen there. I need to, first of all, get that edit text value, and I need to convert that from a string value into an integer value. So what I'm going to type in here is integer dot parseInt, and you can see it's looking for a string value there. So let's go text. Oh, do hit the handler code. See, I can obviously hit my trackpad. Integer.parseInt. We're going to go text num1 dot get text. It's a method we need to grab the text, and then we're going to go to string, and then the rest of that's going to convert that into an actual string. So even though theoretically the text is already string format, we're going to just make sure that it's a string before we convert it to an integer. Notice that I'm not putting any error checking here too. Probably a try-catch statement would be important in case there's a value that is entered that is not a number, but we'll leave that for a different lesson. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. It's a fairly long piece of syntax. So let's go here, and then we have number 2, and change this to number 2. And so all these 2 lines of code are doing is just basically grabbing whatever text is in those 2 text boxes in our UI, these 2 text boxes that the users entered, and then storing them as an integer value. And so now we can use those. And so that was our whole kind of goal. So this next line of code, we're going to take that answer variable that we declared at the top here. If you look back up, integer answer. Like I said, probably with the division, probably should be a double, but we'll just leave it for now. And then we're just going to go calculate. We're going to use our function that we just declared down below here. And it's going to take 2 arguments, and we're just going to put number 1 and number 2. And really that's going to do everything that we need. So this function is going to fire. It's going to store its return type here, which is going to be this ands as the answer. And then we're going to have the calculations done that we need. Then the last thing we need to do is we need to then take this answer and turn that back into a string variable that we can send to the label answer right here where we have a question mark. So let's take a look at what I want to do there. I want to just go label answer dot set text string dot value of, and we just want to go answer, which is from above there, and then I just want to do a semicolon. And so this is going to now set the text to the string value of that integer that we have right here, answer. So you can see how everything's kind of linked up. And this really should be all the code we need for this program to run. So we have one function that has some just basic Java logic there with an if, else if statement. Could have been a switch too, could have used a switch there instead. We have the event handlers here handling our 4 button presses. The addition, subtraction, multiply are just really doing flipping the operation, then flipping the text, and then we have our calculate happening within the calculate. So let's just take a look and let's try and run our application within the emulator. So we're just going to hit the play button here. The first time you're going to do this, I'm not going to walk you through. You're going to need to create a new emulator. I just created this one here. Notice that you also have the option to deploy this directly to an Android device. You need to change some developer settings in your phone for that to happen, but that's pretty easy to do. But let's just run on this emulator, this Nexus 5X with API level 23. So I'm going to click OK, and let's just see what happens. I'm going to just maybe pause this and let it load up for a second. So I'll reopen once we get there. Okay, so my emulator came up fine, but you can see that I have an error here. This error is pretty basic. What we have here is it doesn't seem to like this question mark here. So as my initial value, if I go into the design here of my text view. So I'm just going to change that really quickly to, I'm just going to put an underscore there as kind of a placeholder for now. And it's going to hold that a little bit better. And let's just try and just save and rebuild and see what we get there. So just let that emulator load up. I'll give it a second. Okay, so I was receiving an error in my build, so the emulator's up in here, but I was getting an error every time I tried to run this. One thing I noticed as I was kind of going through is that I had missed a little bit of code here. I thought originally maybe the at override was an issue, but that's not the case. It was what actually happened is I forgot to add in that link to all the buttons besides the add button. So let's just copy this and let's put that needed to be above each of these buttons. I went and set the listener, but I forgot to add in the actual link to the buttons themselves. So let's see if this kind of fixes the problem that I had when I went to build there. So let me just go back and change that. So I need to make sure I have that link in place. I only did the addition one. I think maybe I thought I had copied and pasted that for each, but that's what happens. Sometimes you miss something. And this should really fix that problem that we had. One thing I did eliminate here is this at override, but I don't think that makes a difference, so I'm going to leave that. In our original code we had that, so I'm going to just put that in here, and put that in here, and put that in here, and we're going to see where we get to here in terms of fixing. Oh, and you can see I'm still need to add that for button calculator here. So, oh, that's not what I need to add. I need to add that link for this last button. So, we can do that now. I'm going to talk a little bit about, while I have a chance here, how the heck I figured out where that error was, because even though this isn't about error checking this video, you can see down here, that's why I knew that it had something to do with on-click listener, because it was showing that was where the error was coming in. So that's why originally I thought, oh, maybe I need to add that at override and get rid of it like I had in my last application, but it wasn't the case. It was obviously I just forgot to place that link. Now I could have done all these links up here with other UI, but I chose to keep each of this line of code right next to the listener. So that was a choice, and I obviously just forgot to do that for each one. But you should see 2 lines there. One's the link, and then one handles the listener. So I have that for everything now, I believe. So I'm going to give this a try. I noticed that there's also an error showing up here, so let's just see what that is. And I think I mentioned this before, that I don't need this answer to be set to 0. It says it's redundant, so let's just go like this. And then that no longer shows up on the side here. If there's any other blatant errors, they're going to show up in red, and those little bars along the side. Just those are little tips for kind of getting used to the UI. But the emulator's up and running, so let's just hit the play button. Let's see if this actually launches and works the way that it's supposed to work. So just going to click on the emulator down here, which is up, and let's if our build actually works. You can see it sometimes takes a minute or two, and it looks like it's deploying our app. And actually, just as we expect, it has our buttons, and our buttons should flip when I press the signs. I have to add sub, mult, divide, and that should be changing our operator at the same time. Now, if the user enters in information, let's say 9 and 4 here, and I hit calculate, I should have that answer showing up down here. It's kind of a weird placeholder, the underscore, but you can see that it's doing the math there. But you can see also that I should have probably used a double instead of integer, just because we're getting 9 divided by 4, we're getting 2, because it's not showing any decimal remainder or anything like that. Simple fix would be changing my integer values to decimal. And you can see if I change this to add, that it works just as expected, though, or subtract works just as expected. And we get the correct answer. The only issue would be with dividing, where you're not going to have an integer value, you're going to end up with a decimal value. And what it's going to do in that case is just round, and so we don't want that necessarily. But for the sake of this, we have a working calculator app. It just doesn't do decimals or remainders. So you can see that there. Our app is working as we'd expect it to. And yeah, our code should be complete. A few little errors there, but we sorted that out after the fact. Just kind of quick review of our code before we end this video. At the top here we have declared each of the different UI elements. Then we went down inside the onCreate method. You can see the view is set there, the main activity view, which links to that XML. Then for each of the UI elements, we have the link set up to link these objects here that we've declared back to that XML file, the main XML back here, which is obviously the code looks something like this. And I can manually change any of these properties here if I would like. But we have a nice designer now in Android Studio that you can kind of work with that visually. And then from there, I've set on-click listeners, where we've added a little bit of logic in here inside those buttons. And then you can see that the piece of code that we were missing from each of the buttons was right there, that linking piece, but we've added that now. And then our main logic for the calculate is here, grabbing those text values from those edit text boxes, then using our calculate function to do the basic math based on the choice of operation, and then redisplaying this last line of code, our answer. And that's all there really is to our app. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Android Studio and how the UI interacts with the code behind. And like I said, you can see those things up here. Main activity and inside the layout. We're really working in those two files. Anyways, more lessons to follow.